Yo guys, JC here. How's it going? I'm doing something a little bit different today. I'm gonna be reviewing a video, and it's not about religion, but it is about politics, though. It's about the war in Ukraine. Now there is this guy in Russia. He has a channel called 1420. Big channel, huge channel. He makes basically street interviews every day, and I just wanted to make a kind of reaction video to that. Now, I'm not a fan of reaction videos myself. I honestly despise them. Especially these days, a lot of people who do these type of videos are extremely lazy. It's like, I don't know, you're watching some kind of it's just more like a watch along rather than actually giving your commentary on the video and stuff like that. So, before we jump into the video, just a bit of background here, I guess. Well, I mean, everybody knows, of course, about the war going on between Russia and Ukraine. Huge war. There's well over 100K soldiers on each side. Russia, of course, is helped by countries like North Korea, Iran. I think there's someone else, but I think these are the main two right now. And Ukraine, on the other hand, is helped by most of the world. Um, yeah, there's a lot of money being poured into it. When I say money, it's not money like in cash. It's just basically value in terms of military equipment. So, for example, I don't know, if America sends a HIMARS system over there, it's basically like whatever the value for that weapon system is, they convert that into, I don't know, say like $1 billion, and that's what you see in the numbers. When you see a number, I don't know, like US approved, let's say $10 billion of funding, they don't mean that, okay, they transferred that money to a Ukrainian bank account. They are calculating that in terms of equipment sent over there, most of the time anyway. So let's take a look at the video, and then I will stop and comment.
Ну вот, в общем, дроны атакуют
Дроны
нас
атакуют, знаю,
каждый день.
каждый день,
Вот, а
ничего.
почему?
Как почему? Потому что мы уже 1,5 года украинцев атакуем.
А мы заслуживаем того, чтобы...
А?
А мы заслуживаем того, чтобы нас атаковали?
Слушай, ну а как, вот если, да, ты сидишь себе дома, к тебе пришли и начали свои правила диктовать, ты что, на ответку не имеешь права, что ли? Имеешь, конечно. Ну, вот.
Okay, so yeah, I absolutely agree here with what the guy said. This is very bizarre to me because of course, I know some Russian people. Most Russian people I know absolutely do not support the war. They do not support, Vlad the Putsch. I mean, this is so wild for me because we basically, like, we just barely came out of COVID. A lot of people were suffering during that time. Not just, I mean, yeah, it's true that most of us were never sick, but there were a lot of, like, kind of, it was a chain effect. So a lot of companies started to lay off workers, minimize, etc., etc. Like, yeah. So we just came out of this shit, and then, you know, Vlad the Putsch decided to continue that misery for everybody in the world, because now we're suffering because of inflation and stuff like that, and this is because of the war. Okay, this is not because, yeah, I mean, I know it's because also of company greed. That must be said. A lot of companies are just jacking up the prices because they can, because there's a lot of monopolies basically, and they can do whatever they want almost, and they're jacking up prices, etc. But the inflation also comes because of the war. Okay, in a lot of countries, like in Europe, for example, Europe is suffering mostly because of the war, because the flow of products, demand and supply, that's the economy we live in today, it's basically broken. So it's not really working. And that's why the prices go up. And in Japan, it's the same thing, actually. But yeah, the guy is absolutely correct. It's like there is a portion of Russians actually out there, a quite large ones, apparently, judging by the polls, and they live in this really bizarre world where they say like, well, of course Russia has the world to attack Ukraine. What that implies, though, is that Ukraine doesn't have the right to fight back in their minds. That's, I don't know. That to me, that's completely wild, but that's how they think, and I'm just explaining to you how they think. Okay, so yeah, it's wild, it's crazy, but that's what they believe, man. Let's look at the next one.
Что вы дроны.
Ну, они
То,
могут
что,
сюда прям
что, то, что у нас один дрон прилетел, это ерунда. То, что там творится, убийство, это как бы... Ну и что дрон? Это наоборот хорошо, что мы хотя бы чуть-чуть начинаем чувствовать, что сейчас творится. Мы же живем как бы в куполе, когда все знают о тех событиях только из телеграм-каналов. А таким образом мы чуть-чуть это начинаем лучше ощущать, так что это...
Мы заслуживаем, получается, этих дронов.
Ну, да.
О,
Это плохо.
So yeah, again, this guy. I'm always wary of this channel because I'm wondering, like, is this guy gonna go to jail sometime? I mean, the guy who's interviewing, but I don't know. He always says he has no fear himself, but I don't know, man. I mean, you need balls of steel right now to do this thing in Russia, because yeah, at any moment you can be branded the enemy of the state, and boom, they just take you away and nobody will ever hear of you ever after. But yeah, so this guy says, the drones, like, what do you expect, basically? Of course, there are a couple of drones reach Moscow and bomb some building. This is really nothing compared to all the bombing that Russia is doing. I wouldn't say, like, I don't know if it's on a daily basis because I'm not sure how many, because I always keep reading that they have a shortage of missiles and stuff like that. So maybe they have to conserve them to a certain extent. But it's fairly frequent. Okay, it's like pretty regular, let's say. So yeah, couple of drones reaching Moscow. That's really nothing compared to what the devastation that Russia is doing in the Ukraine right now. Okay.
Надо с этим как-то бороться. Надо войну прекращать, наверное.
А как ее прекратить?
Как ее прекратить?
Бля, чувак,
Договориться.
нам дверь выбьют нахуй завтра утром.
Не, как бы
Я не по прописке.
Надо всем
Не, мы можем
объединиться.
сделать.
Надо всем
Можем
объединиться,
сделать,
ребята.
всем россиянам.
Всем россиянам взять по бутылочке пива и пойти протестовать, наверное.
Наверное. Хорошо, что вы добавили, наверное, а то дверь выбили бы завтра. Дроны прилетают.
So yeah, one of the guys there is kind of saying that you have to be careful what you say because they're gonna kick our door in tomorrow. He's talking about the cops, of course, or military, I guess, but the cops are enough. He's saying that we should unite and go to protests, and I agree with that. Because at the end of the day, right now in Russia, basically people are not protesting because they're afraid to go to jail, because they're afraid that the protests will be too small, and in that case, yeah, they can catch you and put you in a cell. Indeed, I think this is one thing that people fail to understand. At the end of the day, it's the people who have the power. Of course, if it's a protest and only like 20 people show up, yeah, it's not going to achieve much and you're probably going to end up in jail. But if you mobilize as a whole nation, if literally, I don't know how many people live in Russia these days. I think it's like 140 million or something like that. Imagine that 100 million people mobilized, okay? So like they decided, they agreed through the internet or whatever that, okay, like any date, like let's say September 29, everybody goes out and protesting, like 100 million people. Trust me, like even in France, the protests are huge sometimes. But like, I don't know what the percentage is compared to the total population. But like, imagine that most of Russia protested, okay? Look, I'm sure that changes would happen, then people stop working, etc., etc. But this is not going to happen because people have to go to work, they have to pay bills, and this is all designed to keep people quiet, to keep people not protesting. Basically, it's that's the system that was created. It's all by design. It's not there by mistake, you know. It's all there by design, and there's a purpose for it, and the purpose is to make sure that you are at work and that you're not out on the street protesting for better conditions, etc.
Летают в Москву.
О, давай без этого.
Ну, не,
Я
хорошая
из СМИ.
тема. Из СМИ? В общем, у нас вопрос про то, что дроны прилетают каждый день.
Про это не буду комментировать. No comments.
Ну, прилетают. По вашему дому, может, прилетают? So today we're at MIBC, it's Moscow International Business Center, and not this building, but right here behind me was hit a couple of days ago. It's called IQ Quartal, this building. Let's ask people why it's happening. Прилетают сюда дроны.
Ну,
Мос-
это нормально. Это как следствие, результат деятельности. Как вы хотели. Они же тоже будут совершать какие-то действия. Любое действие есть противодействие. Но еще не всегда к нам дроны прилетают с Украины.
Сбивают.
Сбивают. Я была там в той зоне, знаю, что сбивают, летают, зоны закрыты.
Финансовая война.
Okay, there's not too much to say about that one, but I mean, she's right, of course. This is what I was saying at the beginning. There is a portion of Russians out there, and they really believe that they have the right to wage war, and basically any reaction is just not allowed. It's like illegal, any word you want to use. But that's the weird bubble that they live in. I mean, that's what they believe in. That I'm not just inventing that. I'm not creating this as to promote my channel or anything like that. I'm just commenting on what the situation is, because I know these type of Russians, and I know where they get the news from and what's in their heads, and that's what they believe. But basically, she's absolutely correct. Of course, yeah. If you take an action, so if Russia starts the war, if soldiers go to Ukraine land, then of course you should expect a counter reaction. That's just obvious. It's obvious, but it's obvious to me. But trust me, it's not obvious to the brainwashed Russians out there.
Идет экономическая вот за ресурсы.
Все дело в ресурсах получается.
Я думаю, да.
Так, мы сейчас, европейцы не покупают вроде ресурсы у России, но отказываются.
Да.
Покупает Китай. Получается, нас Китай выиграл, да, в этой войне?
Китай, скорее всего, скоро будет лидером, но насколько скоро, это неизвестно. Пока бакс растет, и это хорошо.
А мы будем провинцией Китая.
Я думаю, вряд ли провинции мы будем. Вот. Не могу ничего сказать, политики не касаюсь.
Думаете, почему?
This is like actually a classic thing. Like this is so common there. Most people actually just decline to talk about politics from the get-go. But if people comment something, they say something, and then at the end they will add, "Well, actually, you know what? I don't know anything about politics." So like, it's like, come on, it's just like a way to protect your ass on tape, I guess. But anyway, so it's a war about resources. That's an interesting point, because actually Russia is a huge country. There is a bunch of resources there. I know some of them are untapped, because it's in kind of remote regions, and maybe it's hard to get the technology there. And I mean, like, the winters are brutal, so you need like technology that can withstand any type of weather, which is not easy. Okay, it's not easy. But technically speaking, though, Russia has pretty much all the resources, I believe. So it should be an extremely wealthy country, and if the wealth is distributed properly in the country, we should have no poor people, etc. But of course, that's not the case, because there is corruption, etc., etc. Dictatorship at the top. We know that. So the Ukraine war is about resources, he says. Well, maybe. I mean, Ukraine has some resources indeed. And, I guess if you're just talking from a quantity point of view, the more the better. But the other thing is that there is also a gas pipeline that goes through Ukraine. And obviously, Ukraine has a, what do you call it? They have a right to basically tax it. And you know, maybe they decided that, okay, we're going to tax you a high amount to, you know, pump your gas through our country. So to circumvent that, Russia built another pipeline that goes under the water that was damaged. That's, you might have heard about that. It's the Nord Stream pipeline. That one was damaged. I don't know the status of it because I don't really keep up with it, but that one was going to Germany. It's closed right now, obviously, but that was an attempt to pump gas into Europe, basically going around Ukraine. So, is there an argument there that, you know, Putin basically got fed up with paying a high tax to Ukraine? Maybe, but I really doubt that. I really, really doubt that that would be enough to launch a full scale invasion that would cost basically like the whole Russian economy right now is just the whole amount pretty much goes to the war. I really doubt that was the point. So I think the point was to grab land, to find excuses, you know, that there are Nazis there, like Nazis everywhere in Ukraine, but other bunch of bullshit that he said. I really don't think it's about the pipeline, okay? I really think that it was just to grab land and to get the resources that he could. But obviously that didn't go as planned.
Вообще вот они сюда летят.
Почему они сюда летят?
Да-да-да. Ну просто так.
Наверное, чтобы просто
Ну.
испугать нас, сломать наш вот этот русский дух, сплоченность, вот это, поменять наше все-таки мировоззрение на западную аудиторию.
Вот чего они хотят, получается, этими дронами.
Ну да, чтобы мы наконец-то там обратили свой гнев, наверное, против своего правительства и заставили поступить так, как хочет Запад.
Я сегодня ехал на
So this one is a classic person, you know, they're saying that, yeah, we're basically, it's all kind of the West's agenda. The West wants the Russian government to change, Russian laws to change, etc., etc. That means that Putin has to go, and etc., etc. This is the thing, though. Even before the war, there are two. I mean, there are many economic factors you can look at. One of them is, for example, GDP. The other one is GDP per capita. Okay. Well, before the invasion, we have to remember also that even before the war started, Russia illegally annexed Crimea, and a bunch of sanctions were put on the nation. So I'll give you one example. Before Crimea, if I work, let's say in Moscow, and let's say kind of almost a minimum wage, let's say, I would maybe earn about $2,000, okay, per month. That would be kind of I would say like the average salary, okay? Well, after Crimea got annexed, that same salary, okay, I would be making there, instead of being worth $2,000, now it was only worth like $840. So the value dropped by over 50%, which is a lot, okay? And now I think that same salary is worth about $500. So the value has dropped even further, obviously, because there are even more sanctions, etc. Yeah, so GDP before the invasion, Russia ranked, I think, 13th in the world. So again, I told you already the background. Russia has pretty much all the resources you can imagine, and they're still ranked only 13th in the world. That says a lot. But in the GDP per capita, though, they were ranked like, I don't know, 85th or something in the world. Between, I don't know, some kind of mighty countries like Romania, Moldova. I know that Russia aspires to be at the level of the US and probably China these days. But in reality, economically, we live like countries like Romania and Moldova, okay? This is the truth. And they don't want to say that out loud.
машине, вот сюда добирался до Сити, и сверху что-то погремело, мне показалось, люди прям пригнулись на улицу, мне показалось, что это как разбитый дрон был.
О, делать-то, чтобы они уже перестали атаковать.
Заключить мирный договор и прекратить войну.
А как думаете, что в этом мирном договоре-то должно быть? Было в 91-м должно быть?
Нет, как сейчас. Должно быть, наверное.
То есть сейчас у России Крым и всякие вот эти территории, они России будут принадлежать, получается?
Ну, уже принадлежат, да.
Но они вроде не соглашаются на это.
Ну, должны согласиться.
А люди обычные что-то могут сделать, чтобы уже поскорее...
Нет. От нас ничего особо не зависит. Это политика. Много не знаем.
Мое мнение то.
Okay, well, this is an example of a brainwashed Russian. Okay, don't know much, and also wants to dictate terms, from their side. So yeah, oh yeah, sure, we already have Crimea and like Donetsk and stuff like that. But that we should keep that. This is ours, and they should just accept what we say. So now maybe do you kind of understand why Ukraine is fighting back? Because that territory belongs to them. It doesn't belong to Russia. They just want to return back to the borders that were agreed on in 91 when the Soviet Union collapsed. Borders of various ex-Soviet republics was agreed on. Yeah, you can argue, okay, sure, it's unfair, whatever. But look, in that case, anyway, first of all, my comment is it's tough. You have to just live with that, okay? Because you can't just like keep rearranging the borders. That's not up to you. The borders were agreed on and accepted internationally. And secondly, it's not your job to be the world police and going around, invading other countries. I mean, think about it. A lot of Russians actually compare this war to the US invasion of Iraq. Now, I oppose, of course, the invasion of Iraq as well. I think it's a monstrosity that should never have happened. A bunch of innocent people died for nothing, absolutely nothing. There was no progress, no meaningful progress achieved in Iraq. The whole thing about, we're going to give them, like kind of Western standards of living and democracy, all of that was just bullshit, okay? That was just bullshit that Bush said to the media just to keep them happy, the stenographers of our system. That was just nonsense. It's still a crap hole. Sorry, but it is. It's a shithole. That's what it is still. I'm sorry to use that word, but that's what it is. The standards of living are extremely low. There is no progress there. There's no democracy. You can even argue that after the invasion, it got even worse because, ISIS was born and they went on a rampage. They stole a bunch of US equipment, not just there, but also in Afghanistan. You can actually argue that we made the situation much worse. But the difference was, though, is that the US did not annex Iraq. Yeah, we jacked the oil, that's true. That's definitely true. But we didn't annex the country, though. Like, Iraq did not become a kind of territory of the United States. Russia, though, it's different. They actually decided, okay, this is going to be our land now. So you have the territory of Russia. Now we're going to add to that whatever we invaded in Ukraine. And that's definitely not okay.
Что это игра правительства, вот, и это нас не касается, как по мне.
Ну, это нас касается, вот, можно сказать, физически.
Понимаете, что вот они-то главные игроки, а мы-то просто...
Пешки.
Ну, можно и так сказать.
А как это так? Я вот не ощущаю себя пешкой. Вы чувствуете себя пешкой?
Да, 100%.
Рабом?
Ну, не то что рабом, но в моих силах написать просто комментарий от силы. Грубо говоря, мы не имеем вес общества.
Франции, они, как думаете, тоже себя чувствуют такими пешками?
А там каждый день же у них какие-то войны, всякие протесты.
Как думаете, они чувствуют себя пешками? Наверное, нет, да?
Наверное, они больше духовистые, что ли. Из-за этого выходят.
Look, that's why I brought up the example of France in the beginning, because in France there are a lot of protests. You often see that in the on CNN or whatever, these mass protests. It's like the wide in Paris especially they have very wide streets because there's a lot of traffic. Okay, and it's just completely occupied by people. It's just people, 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 like this huge mob of people, and with flags and whatnot, slogans, walking around, protesting something, very often, because you should do that. Because if you don't do that, we end up in a situation. Even in the States, we have that because in the States, people really don't know how to protest. Okay, they don't. We had a few here and there, and now it just completely disappeared. It's like, well, it's like it seems like now everything is fine and dandy and everybody's just home and happy and stuff like that. Whereas in reality, we know that, for example, about 60 to 70% of the working force work paycheck to paycheck. Yeah, like I said, there are a lot of monopolies and they just jack up prices right, left, and center. And that seems to be okay, apparently. Look, I know again there are some kind of more local things going on with like Starbucks and stuff like that. Yeah, that's cool. But it gives the illusion that mostly, for the most part, everything in the US is okay. But it's not. It's really not. So I really don't understand then why people don't protest. And I think that's the same as what the guy said here is he feels that people have absolutely no say in those matters. No say whatsoever. He feels like a pawn in the system, like 100%, he said, even. I think this is actually very similar to the US. Probably people also gave up on it and they just feel like, okay, sure, I can protest whatever, but that's not going to change anything. And again, that's why I said, like, yeah, if you have a protest and 20 people show up, 50 people show up, that's probably not going to achieve anything. Okay, you have to learn. We have the internet today. We have the ways to mobilize. Okay, so people should just do that and protest en masse. Go out there. Tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people. Just try to mobilize properly, and then hopefully it will achieve something. But you need to be persistent. It's not like, yeah, protesting is not easy. It's not just like you show up somewhere for like 5 minutes, you shout something, and you go home. It takes effort. Democracy is not easy, okay? It requires you to really participate in it, like, actively. And again, unfortunately, everything out there besides that is designed to keep you from participating. Really, if you think about it, the jobs are designed to keep you at work. Okay, so during the day when most things are active, you can't be active because your ass is in the office somewhere writing some silly emails that don't really matter. It's all designed to keep you away from protesting, okay?
Видимо, это ответная реакция на происходящее недалеко от России. И мы повлиять на это не сможем. Поэтому...
Что-то нам все сегодня говорят, повлиять сегодня не сможем. Мы маленькие люди, ничего не можем сделать, да?
На самом деле, я думаю, что да.
Так все... Ну, что-то так все говорят. Все... А почему такое мнение у людей, как думаете? Может быть, почему?
Не знаю, это долгая и упорная работа, наверное, возможно, государства, чтобы, возможно, как-то себя более смиренно вели.
Что обычно...
Well, yeah, that's the thing about Russia, definitely. But it's actually, you can argue it's fairly true in the US as well. We only have a few media companies, okay? And again, it's a monopolies, a few of them, but not many. And they control the flow of information. They completely control the flow of information. They want you to hear what they have to say. But very often, it it's probably not the objective truth, man. And it's even more true in Russia, where the government pretty much has control over the information that they want you to know. So uh, there were some independent channels in Russia before the war, but they were basically forced out. Now they still exist. Most of them still exist, I think, to be honest. But they don't exist within Russia, though. They exist abroad, because basically these people they were kicked out. You don't agree with the party line. You're not going to repeat what we want you to repeat, so you can't exist then in this environment. So you're free to go. At least they were free to go. They were not put to jail. But yeah, they still exist out there, and they still work. But I would argue that maybe, like, for within Russia now, it's even easier to silence them, because like, if it's a channel, let's say, like, from abroad, it would be easier to block it. I would imagine, because you can just kind of, I'm not sure, of course. I'm not working for the censorship department, okay? But I would imagine that it's easier to block something like that. Whereas within the country, maybe it's a bit more hard to control that.
Люди могут сделать. Человек очень известный попытался уже что-то сделать, и он сел в тюрьму на очень много лет. То есть...
Из-за того, что он пытался что-то делать.
Конечно. И вы же знаете, в каких условиях он сейчас там сидит?
Да.
Я думаю, это сделали показательно, как бы страх только усилился у людей что-либо предпринять.
Это чтобы все остальные знали, что с вами тоже такое будет, если что-то будете делать.
Влиятельные люди точно испугались, которые могли бы что-то сделать. А обычные люди, которые даже, зарплату получают 20 тысяч в месяц, точно ничего не будут делать.
Just a quick comment here on the salary, because in the text, she actually says 20 тысяч in Russian. It's translated as $200, but it's not $200. It's much, much less. Trust me. 20,000 rubles? I would imagine it's probably it's worth less than 100. Actually, it's probably like 70 or 60. Well, maybe 70. Yeah, around there. I don't know actually what kind of job in Russia pays about that kind of salary, but I would imagine, yeah, maybe some kind of, street janitor, street cleaner, something like that. Maybe. I mean, because when I worked there, I worked in a media company. I was working in an advertising company, actually. So in my case, obviously, you expect that the salary would be a bit higher. But yeah, she mentions that there is somebody who protested, complained, and he ended up in jail. Of course, she's talking about Navalny, and he's a politician. Yeah, he's in jail, and he's in pretty bad shape from the last time I heard. He's basically like not fed very well. I'm sure, like, if he gets sick or something, I'm not sure he gets the proper medicine and stuff like that. So look, I mean, Russian jail, I mean, you don't want to end up in any jail. Let's be honest there. You don't want to go to any jail anywhere, anytime. But some countries are definitely worse than others.
Обычные люди не могут. Мы же не участвуем ни в чем. Ты как думаешь, можешь повлиять? Напишешь бумажку куда-нибудь, бомбы прекратят пускать? Есть определенная цель, я считаю, она будет действовать. Будут против этого или нет?
А как думаете, вот сколько людей хотят, чтобы были уже мирные переговоры?
Многие очень хотят, многие. У нас люди, вот я, допустим, по себе скажу, у меня там родители, но они реально трясутся, сидят.
А почему тогда все еще нет мирных переговоров, если, наверное, вообще почти все россияне хотят этого?
Не знаю, я не хочу. Потому что у меня родственники в Украине живут. Жили. Вот, переехали недавно. Я просто смотрю, что там происходит. Там люди просто, их зомбируют с малолетства. Они переписывают историю.
Okay, this is really, really hilarious to me. So she's asked the question, do you want peace? and she says, no, I don't want peace. So, okay, why? Because apparently the children are being zombified there and people are being brainwashed. Like she's talking about Ukrainian people. She's saying that as a Russian, which is so fucking ironic because everybody knows that it's the Russians who are extremely brainwashed these days. Look, you just have to turn on the main channels, what we call Первый and Второй канал, which is like the first and second channels. These are channels that are publicly available on TV, okay? So, like, I don't think you need any cable really. Like, it's not a cable channel, it's just a regular channel. So basically, it's a channel that comes if you buy a TV, you just plug it in, and boom, you have your few channels there. And these are two of them, and it's basically 100% propaganda. There is not an ounce of truth there. It's just propaganda from dusk till dawn, you know? So it's really hilarious to me that she's saying that people in Ukraine are brainwashed about something when all they want is just to live freely and live by, you know, proper Western standards, which are, like I said already, much, much higher than Russian standards. That's all they want. And they are apparently the brainwashed ones. That is so hilarious to me. Look, if Russia wanted to be convincing, okay, if Russia wanted to put forward a convincing case, look, here everything is good, join us, let's build a stronger economic bloc or something. Look, you can make that argument. In that case, all you have to do is you have to make sure that you build up a strong economy and that your economy is able to compete with the likes of you know, China and the United States. But they didn't do that, not even close. So at least if they had a strong economy, let's say Russia was like number 3 in the world, at least number 3 in the world, you can at least make some kind of argument there. Okay, well, look here, things are actually good. People are living well, they have a high salary, they have a high standard of living. But that is not the case. That is absolutely not the case, not even close, okay? So in that case, people like other countries look around and they're like, okay, well, in Russia, things are like that, not very well. And look at like in France and US, etc., Germany, things are pretty well. So do I want to live like Russia or do I want to live like Germany? This is the choice that these countries are making. And they chose, okay, well, as a nation, we decided we're going to be more like Europe, and that's their choice. Who are you to tell them otherwise? Seriously.
То что делать, чтобы дроны не прилетали?
Такой вопрос сложный, политический, геополитический. Ну, я вообще за то, чтобы там, все стороны как-то друг с другом договорились, чтобы интересы всех учитывались. Я про политические и геополитические, условно, вот, за такой мир во всем мире. Вот, не знаю, насколько это возможно сегодня, но мне кажется, надо к этому двигаться, по крайней мере.
Well, yes, I agree. Look, the one prediction I can make here, and this is going to be 100% true, okay? The war between Russia and Ukraine will absolutely end in some kind of agreement, okay? This is absolutely for certain. I mean, yeah, you could end up, I guess, in a situation like North Korea and South Korea where there is this, you know, DMZ zone, but technically, like, the two countries are still at war, okay? Or you can even argue that it's like that between Russia and Japan, actually. Russia and Japan never signed any agreements after the war, as far as I know, anyway. So, like, technically, they're still at war with each other, but of course, you know, nobody's fighting. But yeah, I mean, it didn't really, really end between them. So, yeah, that could be one scenario. The other scenario is, yeah, there is some kind of agreement, actually, and the Ukrainian lands are returned to Ukraine. That would be, that's all Ukraine wants. They don't want more. They just want back what they had in 91 when the borders were agreed back then. That's all they want. Okay. In a negative point of view, it could be also like Russia kind of wins the argument and they keep what they have now, but that would not be ideal at all. I mean, I don't want that. I don't want Russia to occupy, annex these territories. It doesn't belong to them.
Ты можешь повлиять. Тут выстроена такая система, когда все влияет от одного человека. Хоть 1000 человек. Да хоть 100 000 человек.
Ага.
Без мазок.
А что можно сделать-то, чтобы перестали они атаковать Москву?
Телевизор выключить и начать с башкой своей думать.
Exactly. This is exactly, look, this is my advice to Russians all the time. This is exactly what I say. Turn off your fucking TV. You're just getting propaganda from it. Like, I mean, I know even people who were apparently critical thinkers, I thought, they absolutely abandoned their critical thinking capacity. It's just gone, just completely gone. And I was just impressed. I was amazed by the strong power of propaganda. Like, wow, these were, like intelligent, decent people, I thought, and now they're just completely gone, just forget it. You can't have any kind of conversation with them, because if you start, they're just gonna accuse you, oh well, you're a Western agent, you're a Western propagandist, you just want what the West wants. No, how about this? I want what I want. How about that? That's a radical idea. How about that? I want what I want. I don't belong to the US government. I don't belong to the Japanese government. I have my own set of beliefs. I have my own set of ethics and morals and my own worldview at the end of the day. So, how about that? Of course, yeah, you can argue that it's influenced by certain things, but I also have my own brain. I can sit down, I can rationally compare systems, I can logically deduce certain things. So how about that? But they don't think like that. They really think that it's black and white. Like, if it's not my point of view, then it's the West's point of view, and there's no more gray area. It just doesn't exist for them. It's one or the other. If you're not us, you're one of them. It's like that, unfortunately. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. I just wanted to do something a little bit different, because usually I do like religious commentary. I am gonna do that. I am coming back to it soon. I just need a bit of time, because this week I actually restarted my regular schedule. It's been tough going, to be honest with you. It's been tough to get back into the rhythm. But once I do, give me a bit of time. Once I do, I'll return to religious commentary. And yeah, stay tuned for more. All right, GC signing off. Take care there, stay safe, and peace.